LA Times The Envelope Roundtable is presented by 20th Century Studios' Quiz Lady for your Emmy consideration in all eligible categories.
Gracie and Parish makes decisions that aren't very good, and if we've done our job right and I've done my work properly, you kind of cringe and go, no, don't do that. But he has to go a certain route to be able to find out the information he needs in regard to the death of his son, and to at the same time try to figure out how to keep his family above water.
For the Los Angeles Times, I'm Yvonne Villarreal. This is the Envelope Drama Roundtable. It's great having you. Let's dive right in. Okay. There's a first time for everything. So tell me about your first time on a set as an actor. Amy, Quantum Leap. Were there any blunders your first time on a set?
Quantum Leap. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was so excited to be on television. And you know, at the time, I would, if I could tell my younger self, say, it's okay to ask a question, there are no dumb questions. I didn't know that. I thought, like, what if they know? I didn't know what a mark was. I didn't know what a boom was. I didn't know that you're not supposed to overlap. But this gorgeous woman, she leaned in and she whispered, she said, that's your mark. And don't. She told me, she gave me all the ropes of the day, and I'm very grateful to her. Mm-hmm. But it's silly not to ask a question.
But you're shy, and then don't want to mess it up.
Well, Maya, on paper, Jane Smith in Mr. and Mrs. Smith is such a dramatic pivot from the work that we know you from. Were you immediately game, or were you like, are you guys sure, like, this is what you're considering me for?
Yeah, actually, Donald talked to me several times, like on FaceTime, and I didn't know, am I gonna get killed in the first episode? Like, what is my role in this? And I really had no idea, and he was just kind of gauging my interest, gauging like if I was the right vibe for this. Mm-hmm. And and then by the third time he's like, oh no, you would play Jane Smith. And I was like, oh, okay. And it just, I mean, it's always scary to jump into any role. It doesn't really matter what it is, but I was excited to try it because I was ready to have a change from Pen 15. Like I was looking for that.
Would you have children with me, even if I'm a sociopath?
Are you exactly the same as you are now, but just a sociopath?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about the moment in the mirror too, when you made a face in the mirror.
That was written.
Was it?
That was written.
It was so good.
So that's what's so interesting about
I
the
rewound
writing.
it like 4 times.
Oh, I mean, I just love that Francesca, she wanted to show what it's like to be, again, like a spy, but not the way, when you see Bond movies or things like that, you're like, but doesn't it hurt after running a while, like in those boots? Like, don't you have a blister or something? So like showing all those little things, and even just like, what would you do in a mirror if you were nervous, like right before having to do a mission? Might be to make a face, but so that was
a good moment.
Do you look for those kinds of details to figure out how to identify with a character? Like, does that help a performance feel more true to you, Morgan?
Yeah, I mean, I think as much, one thing that I loved about your show is it just feels like contemporary life, because there are so many of those details shoved in there. There are so many, and I mean, as an actor, the more of that you can get, I think the more human it feels, for sure.
Have you sort of suggested your own kind of details like that in any character you've played, whether George Russell or somebody else?
I really am the kind of actor who like to show up and just do what I'm told. Like I'm very much creatively kind of a bottom, so not really. Like, I think that's kind of what I'm in it for. It's just like, please tell me what to do, and just let me obey.
We want someone else in charge.
Exactly.
Giancarlo?
I like to pay attention to a lot of the details. I feel like it feeds me when I've created a bit of a backstory, detail-wise, for the character. On Breaking Bad, I had an elevator scene, and I realized I'd played this character in a formidable way that you never saw a chink in his armor. And I wanted so desperately to show something that showed that he was human and not a robot, you know. I remember having an elevator scene that was quite chilling, and my emotion was completely stone-faced. And the elevator door closes, and I started to do one little thing, was to tap my finger, and my hands were at my side, just to see if the director would notice. And it was for me, because it allowed me internally to release some energy that was feeding this idea that finally he was nervous, that something was going to happen to him. And the director came in, and he said, Johan came in, and he said, I see that you're doing something with your right. And I said, oh, you noticed that, didn't you? Hey, you saw that, huh? And he said, yes, I want to go down there and get it. I said, you go down there and you get it, baby.
I was really lucky with Jen because she actually appears in the third book. She's Changxian from the third book. And so I got a little bit of her backstory and her texture as a character. In her case, she just thinks if she can solve every riddle in the universe, then life will be better for everybody. But despite her deep intellect, she's actually someone who wears her heart on her sleeve. She can't help but follow her instincts and just live by her gut and live by her heart. So I think it wasn't too difficult, actually. She's someone really relatable to me.
Well, one of the gifts of being an actor, not that I would know, but I would imagine, is that you're slipping into different personas and different professions. And Jess, I know you are self-admitted not like a science person, but in Three Body Problem, you play a very much person that's, into science, a theoretical physicist. Talk to me about the preparation of having to learn how to convincingly relay convoluted concepts and ideas. What did that look like for you?
I mean, we were talking earlier about Shakespeare. I think a lot of us have gone through those stages of learning text that you wouldn't normally speak in your real life. So that's always helpful. And then I read a book about the multiverse, and I listened to a podcast that was with a comedian to entertain myself as well. Because I can't engage unless there's something else narratively going on. But then I was doing all this research, but the best thing for me was actually talking to a real particle physicist and meeting his students and going to Oxford University and just going, oh, right, they're just like people. So of course, I feel like we always put people, super intelligent people on this pedestal, or I feel like I see those characters a lot where they seem so removed, above it all. But we have to remember that they're just human beings with feelings and they make mistakes.
Forge a new world. Is that what you think you're doing? You betrayed everyone alive. Everyone who's going to be born. For what? So that aliens who think we're bugs can come here and kill us all?
So that they could save us.
Didn't you see the eye in the sky?
How far do you go in immersing yourself in a role? Like Amy, whether Sugar or a different role, how far did you sort of go into research that you were maybe not prepared for or felt like I need to really dig into something?
It definitely varies from character to character if they're so far removed, even if in location, if it's an accent I'm trying to learn. But for Sugar, I shamefully, I don't know music well, because also this is a woman who, she was very successful and famous in her 20s. So what does that success look like now for, a woman in her 50s? She's successful, but she's not performing, she has a nice bank account, but And so how do you age that gracefully?
I'll get some coffee.
No, Melanie,
Sugar, do you seriously, honestly believe that you can drag me into whatever this is without having to explain it?
apparently not.
I'm gonna go get coffee.
Okay, coffee.
Carrie, is there a thing that helps you find the character? Like with Elsbeth, is it the clothes, or what helps you get into that space with her?
Well, with Elsbeth, it's so particular because I started playing her 14 years ago in a totally different show, The Good Wife, and, you know, would only get to play her once a year, maybe, at the most. Over The Good Wife, Good Fight, I played her 19 times, but that's over, you know, 14 years. And so then to now be able to do it every day, I'm learning a lot about the character as I go along. But I think always back to the very beginning when I first got the script, what drew me in was the writer wrote a lot of pauses, just the word pause. And I was like, okay, if I can figure out what's going on in the pauses, then that's gonna inform what this person is, because there's something happening there. I don't wanna just throw that away. I wanna dig into that, you know? And so that then became kind of the key to her way of thinking, which is very unconventional.
All evidence points to Louis Fletcher. They're almost ready to indict. Thought you'd want to know.
Yes, that's good to hear.
But there are still some issues, and it's my job to make sure the police do everything right.
They found the wrench with Louis's fingerprints in his weed garden. What issues can there be?
Well, Louis's motive suggests a crime of passion, but the evidence points to premeditation.
And so I kind of kept leaning into that, and then the writers then started sort of seeing what I was doing, and then we all kind of, you know, found an alchemy.
When I auditioned for it, I was like, I'm not gonna be able to do Julian Fellowes' world. Like, I just sort of, you know, like I'm not elegant enough for this. And my wife was like, pretend to be Clark Gable. Okay. And it kind of worked. It's also just the writing and the situations that Julian puts George and Sonia Warfield put George in, and the way that he's allowed to sort of be soft with his daughter and with his wife, and then also just be like a ruthless, brutal sort of killer in business.
Well, Giancarlo, I mean, you have been a scene-stealing supporting player in many of our favorite shows. Is going into focus as a lead a particular kind of acting challenge? How was that for you?
It is. It's a very different acting challenge in that all the attention's on you. I think you just mentioned it. You know, when you go from doing things where you know you have one or two scenes and the expectation is that you're going to electrify the audience or hit the home run out of the park. As a lead actor, you come in and it's changed the focus to looking at the whole piece. And because I was a producer on Parish, my show for AMC, and it took 8 years to get it to the screen, it started to evolve into having a lot of my heart and soul into it. But then getting there is the huge responsibility is to look at the whole piece and what is it all saying? What does it all mean? And where is the character beginning if you have 6 episodes or 8 episodes, and where is that character finishing? And what is that journey, and what will allow the interest and the energy for an audience to follow that character. And so I really related to what you said, Jess, about, you know, the audiences now want to see really human versions of people. And the reason why I wanted to do this show was because it essentially was about an everyman who was over his head, not only in his business, but also in his life. And he had buried a part of his life, which is a piece we added to it, that he was unwilling to speak about. So I started to think about the masks that we all wear and how we wear them and when we wear them and when we take them off and how revealing that is and who we reveal that to.
Cleveland was your mark, right? And he was on to us. And I knew we should have bailed from the top. But no. I had a bad feeling about the whole thing. And I knew it. No, but you're gonna jump right in.
For me, I realized a part of my life years ago was wearing a mask because I'm an actor and I'm good at it, and I didn't have the ability to really look at and decipher and go through the shadow work of my past. So in this show, I was able to do that. and investigate that. But it's still a story about an every man, every woman. And I thought about the guy who was picking up my garbage, the people at the corner store, the family businesses, and I went, oh, I can last a year, man. This is like a privileged lifestyle. What about all those people who can't? Yeah. What about the people against the wall? And that's what I think people want to see more of kind of the version of who they are in what they watch.
So many of you started your careers on the stage, and I'm curious, like, what excites you about each way of acting? Like, on stage, a character lives for a few hours a night. On TV, you have a character that develops over a season, sometimes multiple seasons. Morgan, what do you like about each version?
I mean, I guess the thing about theater that I really love is that, you do this whole process, and then at the end they give it to you. And you get to go out and, try to, over the course of however many nights you get to play it, you get to just keep digging into it and get to keep trying to perfect it. And, you can have a down night. It's a little bit, I feel like it's a little bit more like being an athlete in some way. Like you can have a night where I didn't have it tonight. And the next day you come back and redeem yourself in some way. And, with TV and film, you have a down day, you're like, oh, there it is. I gotta look at that for the rest of my life. Cool. I guess I should have gotten more sleep or whatever. But, the thing I have learned to love about working on camera is that you can find these little things that you don't know where they come from, or just like a little way of getting through a scene that maybe you couldn't have thought of, but it has this energy, or a thought occurred to you in a moment and you get it, and you couldn't probably do it again if your life depended on it. It's nonverbal. It's like there's an intuitive thing that's happened, and it makes the moment work. It makes a scene work, and that stuff doesn't necessarily. I don't know, you can't keep that on the stage in the same way. And so like the fact that the camera can capture that, and there's another sort of precious aspect of what we do that you can consign to film is exciting. And I have learned to love working that way.
Nothing happened. Except
what?
she came into my room one night. At first, I thought it was you, but the lamp revealed that I was wrong.
Was it just your room or your bed?
My bed.
On Gilded, you're working with so many stage actors. Does it feel like a little bit like a version of being in a play?
Yes,
yeah,
it does.
Yeah.
Not on stage, because this is a group of stage actors who are also really seasoned television and film professionals, but backstage it feels like a backstage of a show.
The stories.
The stories and just the way that everyone is together.
What songs are you
and everyone's
singing,
just talking so
Morgan?
much. And it's like, I don't know, there's, like sometimes sets can be a little, like a little careful sometimes. Like, you don't spend as much time together.
Everyone trying to be all professional or whatever that is.
Theater's horny. I'm not saying like
that's right.
Not in
that's
a way,
right.
but it's like we're all in the dark and behind set, and it's like communal. And not saying film and TV isn't.
Yeah.
But
No, it's different.
it's just a different.
I used to get very lonely doing film and TV because there isn't the green room, there isn't the moment backstage with everybody, or everyone's on their device, or learning lines because there is no rehearsal.
You're also not in the same space at the same time.
That's right.
In the rehearsal room,
Or
you're
you
just like
meet-
together all the time.
You meet fellow cast at a premiere. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, wish we had a scene.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah.
You haven't given each other back rubs as much.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's the reason we all started doing theater. The group back rubs.
I feel like my heart's gonna explode. I'm so sorry. I can't do this. Do you want drugs? For your anxiety. You have drugs? Oh, yeah. I don't need a life coach. It's gonna be fun. Maybe like a drink later?
I'm married and gay.
Why'd you have to say 2 reasons?
Quiz Lady. I've seen it multiple times. It's in my top 10. It might be my top 2. I think it's my number 1.
Rated R, now streaming.
So Jane, at the beginning of this journey, really had no other options in terms of jobs, in terms of family, in terms of living situation. She's estranged from her dad. She just has her cat, and she failed her CIA test in terms of the psych portion of it. So she's doubting her abilities as a person and as a spy, but still tries this opportunity, which is pretty promising. And
it's a perfect situation for her.
Jess, before Three Body Problem, you were doing kids theater in New Zealand. Tell me about that switch up, getting a call. You're going to be on the show from the creators of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And then how did that prep you from doing work in front of a blue screen?
I didn't. Nothing can prep you for that. They really don't. They don't have that class at drama school yet. It's about booking the job. Yeah. So I was on this year-long tour with this charity, Duffy Books and Homes, and we went to underprivileged schools around the country. So I went to some of the most beautiful parts of New Zealand. You know, I got to see places that I never would have seen. And then I go into like cold London. I don't see sun for like 2 months. We go straight into studio stuff. But yeah, nothing can really prepare you for walking on to a soundstage. And I'd never worked on a soundstage before.
Wow.
I'd only worked on like real location sets.
Yeah.
That's how we do it in New Zealand. And so walking into a giant warehouse, and there's hundreds of people there, and they all know my name. Hey Jess, morning Jess. And I'm like, hi, I haven't met any of you. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And like you said, you know, all eyes are on you, so you do feel that pressure spike up of like, I have to do well, but I can't just do well. I can't just like do the perfect thing. I have to be free. How do I be free inside this very structured space? So that was a real learning curve, trying to figure out how to find spontaneity and that spark, even though you have to match the exact same thing and move your hand like this at that time, because that's what matches the wide shot.
You know, Vera always said you were a great physicist, but that's not how you'll be remembered. You're a traitor.
How will you be remembered, Jin Chung?
I'm someone who fought back.
Does anyone remember like blowing your first take? Like blowing a take, like what that feels like? Because I'm so relating to what you're talking about. Yeah, because when you say that there's so much pressure to do it right, and I want to please as an actor, and then you flub and you mess it up. I mean, I remember the first time that happened for me, I was just mortified because there are 100 people looking at you, and it's not that like I forgot the line, even stumbling on a word. And what do you do? Like, you know, and everyone just turns and looks at you, and you're like, oh, you're so embarrassed. But there's something freeing about it.
Yes, if you do it early on, right? Oh, right, I've done that now.
Exactly. You got that out of the way. Now when I blow a take, I just say, don't stop the camera. Everyone just take a deep breath, look at each other, stay on the same page. Let's just go again.
The advice you gave me.
When you've seen somebody, I think like, you know, I feel like I got lucky and I got to watch very experienced actors make mistakes and the way that they handle it. And it's like, not a big deal.
It's not a big deal.
Especially because we're shooting on digital now. It's like I feel
Right.
like in the film days, maybe the stakes were a little higher. And
more expensive.
And now, I mean, it's just like,
What do you do when you just can't get through it though? Like there are times.
Swear a lot. Like scream and swear, and then be like, God, let's go. Okay, you know, like I have had that happen where I just kept. Sometimes you have there are 3 words that you cannot say together that morning. And it's just. I don't know. That's my least favorite thing because it makes me feel like maybe I will just die.
Does the screaming help? Does it blow off the steam?
It makes everyone else really uncomfortable and worried.
That's right.
And I like that.
Oh, you do? That's a great answer. That's a great answer.
I want them to also feel bad.
When I think about Elsbeth, the thing that epitomizes her to me is her ability to be thinking one thing, saying another, and then her body is doing a third thing. But she'll say something to you like, I think that, you know, this particular drug couldn't have been in the system, and oh, by the way, I like your tie. So she goes from one thought to the next, very mercurially, but in her mind, it's, you know, just how people talk.
Giancarlo, you and I have talked before about the sort of high and low points of your career, and you know, there was a time before Breaking Bad where things were really rough for you, and you shared how there was a moment where you contemplated how to have your own life taken so that your family could benefit from insurance. You know, yes, it was a deeply touching story, but I'm curious, like, what you wish more people knew about what it is like for the average working actor and, you know, the struggle to make ends meet.
Well, most of the actors I know who are successful have a much easier time of it, an easier life. 2008 and 2009 buried me completely. And it was the beginning of a very personal ruin that came along with it. And I always knew I was in show business, but don't really care about the business as much in regard to if my family's comfortable and can survive, that's great. And I was married to a lovely woman who is the mother of my children, who said never take anything for money. So when you're up against the wall, you kind of look for all these other things you could do that would compromise your integrity to be able to pay the mortgage. So I think along the lines of back in my career when I was going hand to mouth and getting a residual check for other things I had done where residuals could keep me going for a year.
Right.
And that all ended in 2008, 2009 when the producers renegotiated, they became the stronger and actors didn't have the ability to be able to survive. And so to me, I shared this story recently because it was a part of extricating the last element of shame I had behind failing. And that failure, with all these other mitigating circumstances, led to the end of my marriage and me being distant and me trying to find myself again and thinking those horrible thoughts that I wanted my family to survive. Even in that moment that I have another family, because I feel like in our photo shoot, we were able to talk about and really get close physically, like we all know each other somehow. And it's not an assumption that we know each other. It's that we are a collective family through things that we do, and we have a certain process that we go about, that we respect about each other. We watch each other, and we go, ooh, wow, how did she do that? How did she just flip that over? And we know an inkling of how you may have gotten there, and you may have gotten there, you may have gotten there, but we don't know about our personal lives and what those challenges may have been. So part of the stories I share, and some of it goes into my work when I'm playing a certain character like Parish, is because I feel like it's available to me now to talk about and not be in shame over it.
One of my favorite things to do when I'm about to speak with somebody is look up all your IMDb credits. It's my favorite thing.
Making me very uncomfortable right now.
But, you know, what's great about a career is you never know what it's going to lead to, and you never know what, you know, seemingly small part is something you're really going to enjoy doing. And I'm curious, what are those parts for you? Like, Carrie, for me, my introduction to your work was my best friend's wedding.
Yeah.
And I'm sure being one of the singing cousins, maybe initially you were like, I don't know if this is going to be any moment.
Are you kidding?
And
that was like the biggest moment of my life.
And then it was the biggest moment for us too. I mean, what
Julia Roberts rom-com. I mean, it was like, wow.
Take me back.
Well, we were shooting on film. We were shooting in Chicago. You know, that was when those kind of movies had the budget. They were queens, you know, and you know, like so.
I miss those movies. I just rewatched it on the plane. I was like, this is great. This film,
It was a fun film, and you know, just to and it was my first big film. I had done like the little Cuddy Whitman thing I was telling you about, and then I got that job, and you know, Rachel Griffiths, we were the sisters, and they just, you know, that was when they would bring you to. We shot in Chicago, and they would just let you stay there the whole time. There was no like drop pickup, you get paid scale. It was like they paid you a fee. So, you know, we stayed in these fabulous apartments, and I was like, oh, this is the way it is. And, you know, I got spoiled, you know, and they would hand you the cash per diem, you know, and I was just like, oh my God, I can, you know, live off of this. I mean, I was coming from theater or unemployment. You know, so it was such a, you know, a joy to be a part of something like that. Then I, you know, go to the premiere and, you know, see the final cut. And of course, half of what I didn't make it. And that was, you know, that was a real lesson, you know, to go, I think, oh, I'm in this big Hollywood movie and this is it. This is going to make my career. And it's like, okay, I'm
like back to work.
Back to work.
But you still have such a memorable moment in it.
Thanks, guys.
I can't imagine what that was like to film.
That scene, the singing scene, that was 2 12-hour days and you can only imagine what that room smelled like with all the lobsters by the end of the second day. Yes.
I had it was a role on stage that was, it was also very exciting. It was an understudy on Broadway. I had like a 2-line walk-on, and I was thrilled. I was like, I am the God Emperor of New York. Like, I'm on Broadway. This is and it was, I don't know, it was sort of like, yeah, I don't know. I think it was the happiest I'd ever been. And then the guy I was covering got hurt in the first week of previews, and I ended up like taking over the part.
Wow.
It was a real like Sutton Foster and Thoroughly Modern Millie sort of situation.
Wow.
And that was sort of like the beginning of my actual professional life.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was.
Wait, what was that show?
It was View from the Bridge.
Oh, yes.
It was Greg Mosher's View from the Bridge from 2010.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, that was a good show.
Yeah, it was a good show. We have.
Yeah.
Is there a role you look back on that you wish got more attention, Amy?
No. Why? Who would want that?
Oh, that was such a pure
It's just
sound.
the process.
Melanie came from a lot of costume images. Looked at photographs of Patti Smith. I felt a bit intimidated to lean too far into that world because I'm never going to be Patti Smith. Never going to be that goddess level. So I relied more on the clothes. It's not how I dress in life, and these bad heavy boots.
Well, before we wrap, I'm curious how each of you commemorate a project that you've done. Are you keeping all the scripts? Do you take something home with you? How do you sort of, have a memento of that time? Let's go around this way, Morgan.
I usually throw away all the scripts immediately because I'm, tired of lugging around these the green version or whatever. And then, but I just try to keep like one thing.
One thing.
There's usually something like I have some photos of myself with fake families that I like to keep around, or some little object.
Have you had the object for Gilded Age yet, or you haven't picked something yet?
No, I don't know. Yeah, Gilded. I don't know what. If I had to pick one right now, it'd probably be like one of the tie pins that they give me. They're pretty cool. I'm trying to steal one of those. Yeah.
Carrie, how do you commemorate?
Yeah,
projects?
same. We'll try to get a little something,
Actors
piece of
are
clothing or
stealing.
stuff. I know.
They're like pros.
Yeah. What's the best thing you have?
I have a thing that says homemade pies from Merlot's, which was the bar in True Blood where I worked. So I have that, and it's hanging in, over a window, and so it reminds me of that every time. Yeah.
Giancarlo?
I try to steal as much wardrobe as I can.
On the gentleman? Yeah.
Oh, I handled that.
Yeah.
I like to get my scripts on paper because I find that I like to make notes. So anything I've written on, I keep. And I make that a point. Even the sides from the day before, I will have written all over everything and made notes for myself. So I'll keep those type of things. And it's really project dependent. If it's something where I feel like I feel like I had a hand in it and I was honored and respected, that goes in the keep pile. If it's something if it's something that I feel like I had built some resentments and didn't really like the director, out.
That's out. Yeah.
That goes. But special, I have something for mostly everything I've done. And it's not so much that I want to get everyone to sign it. It's just that's a special episode that grew me, that changed me. That allowed me to not be myself anymore. That was something that represented me not having all the focus and attention on me. And then I'll keep that. I have a Los Pollos Hermanos cup. Someone gave me a Los Pollos Hermanos tray at a Comic-Con. They did not. And I have a yellow shirt and a black tie. I mean, little things like that are from that moment that will transport me back to the memory of that, become important for me. And I sort of keep it for some weird archive that was growing that will be for my children or somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maya? Same, like it's just for, really, I was cleaning out my garage actually the past 2 days. Wonderful. And I do have like a mementos box, and it's pen 15, like it's definitely just a script binder, and when I was directing, because we would have all the scripts at once. And like wrap gifts from crew, so like if they did certain special things of, personalized shirts or things like that. Not from the studio, but from the crew. Things like that, but not for everything.
Not for everything.
No, just,
Anything from Mr. and Mrs. Smith?
The binder, and then all the clothes. Like, I really tried to get a bunch of clothes and shoes.
Yeah.
You end up not wearing them, but they're like very nice, and you're
Do
like,
you find that you put it on, you feel weird because this is what the character wore?
Yeah, and well, actually, they would only let me take things that my character didn't wear, but that were like in the closet.
Got it. Okay,
Just
well, that's different.
in case,
That's
yeah.
different.
But yeah, I took it all.
Okay. You didn't take Max.
No, I'm allergic to cats.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. Jess?
Yeah, very similar. I'm so happy that I'm not the weird one that's like sentimental and keeping all this stuff. Clothes, if possible, I will keep like, there's usually something I gravitate towards. Like once I did this horror film and I said to Kyle, the costume guy, I was like, I wore my costume jacket and I was like, okay, bye Kyle, bye. And he was like, you know what, just keep it. You love it so much. If I make it known, then maybe they'll let me.
Yeah.
But then, same, like you make connections with the other people that you work with, all the departments. And I usually give out like thank you notes at the end, so I might receive some of those. Eve, who was the girl in Three Body Problem, she took a bunch of Polaroids. She actually made a scrapbook during the whole process, which was so adorable. So I have like a Polaroid. I have, maybe this is TMI, but I have like a shrine. In my room, there's like a shrine with all the cards and little mementos. Jin Chung's work
ID.
Cool. Little pins, a framed like storyboard thing, things that just will appear and then suddenly I've got it. I'll keep those. Yeah.
That's lovely.
That's cute.
Amy?
I don't like stuff. But the one thing I have a Dundee. Steve Carell gave me a Dundee. Which is a crappy little plastic, thing, but he said, don't get rid of that, it's valuable. I was like, good tip. But I have that, yeah. And I have scripts, but there are no notes in them, and every time if I'm lucky enough to add to my pile of like, why am I keeping this? There's it's highlighted. They're just highlighted, and my name on the front, and that's it. Nobody will ever be interested. Even if my notes are oh, maybe my name, maybe. Okay,
Surprise.
Very valuable. eBay.
Just saying,
Hold on.
there you go. You guys can be making money, lots of money. Exactly. Well, thank you so much for being with me. It was such a pleasure. All I can say is I hope someone writes a show that eventually features all of you on it.
Yeah.
Not me. I flub my lines early, but
Well, you know the trick now, photo booth, just...
Yeah.
Thanks again, guys.
Repeat.
It was great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. This is great. Spend the day with you.
Yes.
Awesome.
There's a really wonderful twist in the show. It's not just a detective whodunit, matching up pieces and clues and moving on to the next character to get another clue. It's really a strong character study for Colin's character, and I purposely stayed away. I was so afraid that I would spill this twist.
I've come to view the way that the people, the 19th century elite, I've come to view their eccentricities with a lot of affection. They were very strange. They would throw parties for their dogs, where the dogs would be all dressed in costumes and seated at banquet tables, and they were genuinely weird.
LA Times The Envelope Roundtable was brought to you by 20th Century Studios' Quiz Lady for your Emmy consideration in all eligible categories.